Hey, what's up, y'all? And welcome into today's video. I'm glad that you found our Forte Catholic channel. Today's video is a video that I've put off for quite some time, but I decided to do it. And here's why I decided to do it. It's the top 10 Catholic podcasts that you should be listening to. I love podcasts. I've been listening to them since they came out. I edit them professionally. I host one. I have a podcast network. Like all of these things, it seems like my whole life revolves around podcasts. So it is my favorite content medium. The reason that I've put it off is because I work in the podcast industry. I have a lot of friends that run Catholic podcasts, and I didn't want to offend them, but I finally found a way around it. If you're watching this video to see if your podcast made the list and it didn't, I promise you we're number 11. I promise you. So without further ado, we're going to reveal my top 10 Catholic podcasts that I think you should be listening to. There are a ton out there, and I think that these are the best quality for a few different reasons. So we have a couple of different categories, or a few different categories that we're going to be having these shows in. We have some that are like entertainment, comedy, kind of liven up your day a little bit, grow in knowledge to help you pray, some deep conversations, and some literary stuff. So to start it all off, I'm going to be talking about three of my favorites, including my actual favorite. The rest of them aren't numbered, but my favorite show, I've said it multiple times before, is the Catholic Guy Show. So I listen to it on the podcast because I'm cheap and it's free. It is run by Lino Rulli on SiriusXM's The Catholic Channel. It's a daily 2-hour show. What the podcast is like a 2-ish hour recap of the kind of the best of the week. Free, you can get it wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have SiriusXM, he is the premier guy on the Catholic channel. This guy is so funny. I think he's the funniest person in the Catholic world. I've learned a lot from him, like the way that he's able to just tell stories and be funny, but also have some kind of moral or church point, that sort of thing. I've got to be on his show live. Like, he is a tremendous host. I think the most professional host of all Catholic podcasters. He has a couple of Emmys. He was in TV for forever. He's just kind of the gold standard when it comes to Catholic radio, Catholic podcasting. So if you're like me, you want to try out the free version, you can do that wherever you listen to podcasts, The Catholic Guy Show. Also, if you're a fan of Mark Hart, he is one of the co-hosts of the show. And it might sound weird if you've never listened, but the producer of the show, who is also one of the co-hosts, is an atheist. But it actually makes the show really entertaining and kind of intriguing because he's an atheist who's worked for a Catholic show for like 6-7 years. So he's learned stuff. He has an interesting perspective, and mostly Lino just makes fun of him. It's great. The second one that I want to share with you, if you haven't heard of it, is ours, the Forte Catholic Podcast. Essentially, how I like to explain the show, like if you had some people don't have like a good experience with youth group, but essentially it's like youth group for adults. If you had a good experience with youth group, where it's like, hey, let's have fun, let's joke. I have the best co-hosts in the world: John Blevins, Father Anthony Sciarappa, Liv Harrison, Allison Sullivan. They rotate through. We have an absolute blast on the show, and we hope that you guys will too. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. The next one in this entertainment comedy section is This Is Jen from Jen Fulwiler. If you haven't heard of Jen, you've been hiding under a rock. She was a staunch atheist who converted to Catholicism, also had a show on SiriusXM for a while, and now has broke off on her own. She's become a professional stand-up comedian, and she does this weekly show called This Is Jen. She like listening to the show, it's funny, like a lot of the topics are like primarily for women, but I still enjoy it. There's a lot of women that I care about. Like I laugh because it's like, oh yeah, my wife would agree with this, but a lot of it's just for everybody too. I laugh with it. She tackles a lot of hot button issues too. So it's kind of a good balance of having fun and like really, once you have the trust of somebody and they're starting to share things about some more hot button things, you're more willing to listen. So check out This Is Jen wherever you listen to podcasts. The next category is if you want to grow in your knowledge of the faith. That used to be all that Catholic radio had. And the good news about, Catholic podcasting especially is that we can have this wide range of things. But there are still some times that I want to grow in my knowledge of the faith and how to apply it to my normal life. There are two shows here. One, Clerically Speaking, hosted by two priests, Father Anthony Sciarappa and Father Harrison Eyre. It's one of the more popular Catholic podcasts. Two priests it's called Clerically Speaking. They talk about, it started talking about clericalism, but now it's a lot of like the life of a priest, the life of a seminarian, essentially like how we as lay people interact with priests. And they're both very smart. Father Harrison, Father Anthony's one of my best friends and one of my co-hosts, so not as smart. Father Harrison's the smart one, and Father Anthony's the entertaining one. So the two of them together is quite the combination. The next one is Ave Explores from Ave Maria Press, hosted by my friend Katie Prejean McGrady. This show started a few years ago, and it's a seasonal show. So a lot of people, it's like, you don't want to be listening to weekly podcasts all the time. Like we get it. You can probably only pick a few of these, but this one is cereal. It's not the food, but like it comes out in series, a few episodes in every series, and everyone tackles a specific topic. So like right now, there's one going on for Advent. There's been some for like how to be a Catholic and read Scripture and incorporate reading Scripture into your life. So they go through all these things. She brings on some really smart people, and they have really short, like 25, 30-minute conversations, kind of a quick hit, help you engage your mind in the faith. The next one, if you want some help in prayer, my favorite prayer podcast ever, my favorite prayer tool ever is the Pray As You Go podcast. So this is from I believe it's a religious order out of England. And what it is it's kind of a form of Lectio Divina, kind of quasi Lectio Divina, where they read one of the readings from the daily readings from the lectionary for the day. And then they have some silence, and then it's read again, really similar to Lectio. They leave you some time to think about it. There's kind of some meditative music playing to help you meditate and think and pray with the scriptures. They ask you some like poignant questions to think about and pray with. So like 10 minutes long. I've done it on walks. I've done it like driving to work in the morning in the car when I used to have to drive to work and I didn't work here. But like 10 minutes, it's really easy. Like especially for somebody like me who kind of can get distracted in prayer. It really helps me to stay focused. The second to last group is the deep conversations one. So there are very deep interviews. It could be some of all of this: growing in knowledge, growing how to apply things to your faith, or really being able to gauge with some deep issues. The first is called Way of the Heart. It's a podcast out of Canada. It's primarily for men and kind of the a man's heart and the call of God on a man's heart. But I know that a lot of people listen to it and really get a lot out of it. One of the people on the show is a professional counselor. The other is works professionally in the church, like on the diocesan level. So they bring both of those perspectives to the show. It's just really good. So it's one of the most shared podcasts I've ever had. Like I'll listen to an episode and be like, oh man, so-and-so really needs to hear this. And I'll send it to him. There was one on rest that was really good. Like a lot of things that we hear over and over again. It's like, oh yeah, as a Catholic, we're supposed to rest, but like, we're not really very good at it. This was the most like practical and inspiring, to rest podcast that I had ever heard. The next one is Sinner Saint Sister. This podcast was so good that I invited her to be a part of our podcast network. Allison Sullivan hosts this show. I think it is the premier Catholic women's show. Allison is she's started off as a writer. She's a very deep thinker, deep writer, and then has the ability to have tremendous conversations with people. It started off with like local people, kind of as a local show, like kind of really getting to know our local roots and like the deep stories that people have. Now it's starting to grow to be more universal, and it's been really good. So you can subscribe to that here on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts as well. And then the final category is the literary category. So like I thought about combining this to like the knowledge category, but really these are about like growing in knowledge, but also like learning the faith of two of the greatest authors ever, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. So Tea with Tolkien, hosted by Caitlin Facista. She is one of the premier Tolkien scholars alive. I love her to death. She's one of the sweetest and most loving people that you'll ever meet, that comes across in the podcast. So she goes through lessons from Tolkien. She'll go through the Silmarillion. She'll go through like book studies of the Lord of the Rings. So if you love Tolkien, you really should be listening to this. Or if you're like me and not good at reading big books, you can get the summary from Caitlin. It's good either way. And then finally, Pints with Jack, hosted by three guys, some of the premier scholars in the world on C.S. Lewis. I edit this show and I get a lot out of it. Sometimes when I'm editing, it's just work, but I'm like growing spiritually, learning new things as I'm editing the show. C.S. Lewis is just one of the best like Christian thinkers that we've had in the last 100 years. Deep spiritual thoughts. It's one of those things that really sticks with you after you hear C.S. Lewis and these guys do a deep dive into like some of his books. So like they did a deep dive last season into my favorite book ever, the Screwtape Letters, and right now they're doing the Four Loves. So they go kind of chapter by chapter, theme by theme, that sort of thing. So those are the top 10 Catholic podcasts that I think that you should be listening to. Let us know in the comments if you listen to any of these 10 shows. I think I'm going to put links so you can find them, especially on YouTube, but a lot of them are on, are on podcast platforms, obviously. If you like this video, please give it a like, give a subscribe. We have a weekly podcast ourselves that we talked about earlier, the Forte Catholic Podcast. We're just all about making Catholicism fun again, bring out the joy of the gospel to where we can be a people of joy here in the church. We also have, random videos like this. We have a pop culture series called A Catholic Perspective, doing, our favorite TV shows, The Morning Show, Loki, Falcon Winter Soldier, big movies that come out, that sort of thing. So if any of that appeals to you, please hit the subscribe button. It would be so helpful for us. And again, let us know in the comments. Do you listen to any of these shows? Is there some that we missed? We hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. And hit the subscribe button so you don't miss what we do next. Peace, y'all.